mindset. I would be remiss, Spencer, if I did not, bring up a friend of yours and a man that I knew. In fact, they had the first opportunity to be the first African American coach at Oklahoma. Your friend of yours, John Blake. And allow you an opportunity to just, John was buried a couple of weeks ago. I got a chance to saw things on Twitter and what you had put out and so forth. And I think I would be remiss if we just didn't just talk about John Blake for a little bit. We've lost some good coaches. Big John Thompson has just passed, but I know he was a very impactful person with you, to you at your alma mater, and I know he been a lot to you. So I'm just gonna give you opportunity. Let's talk about John Blake for a little bit.
Yeah, John was. If I can do this real quick, I think I've got something over here. Bear with me 1 second. John was a good friend of mine. I'm just going to grab something real quick. John was a good friend of mine. This was his homegoing little deal here, and I was looking at it. AD in Oklahoma University, associate head coach, youngest coach in Oklahoma, first African American head coach at the University of Oklahoma in any sport. Right, 33 years of age. Dallas Cowboys. People don't realize he was the associate head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. Barry Switzer was there. Coached at Nebraska, North Carolina, Mississippi State, Tulsa. Buffalo Bills with Rex Ryan and company. So he really, did some really good things, but he also went through a great deal, took a lot of bullets for a lot of coaches, man. John Blake was an unbelievable friend. The way I describe him, AD, is, in your life, if you're fortunate enough to have someone, and you and I have someone in common, I know you were closer to Max Edison than probably anybody on the planet. But we did have that common relationship. And so what that's like. But they tend to fall into three different categories. Most people either have constituents, they'll have comrades, or they'll have confidants. And so John Blake was a confidant. A constituent is kind of like, since we're in this election season that we're in, they're for the same person that you're for. Someone comes along that can do it better, they may switch over to that other person and discard you. Those are constituents. And then you've got comrades, which seem like it's a kind of a closer thing. But comrades are for you because you have a common enemy. And once that common enemy is defeated, you really can't trust a comrade at that point because you have nothing in common with them. But the confidant is for you. They are for you. You may do things to disappoint them and hurt them, but they don't really care about that. And that's what John Blake was to me. He cared for me. And if you would have come to his funeral, you would have seen, Jean-Paul Pierre, a lot of great NFL players, about 30 different NFL players were there, guys that he coached, profound impact he had on their lives and influencing them. Funniest guy in the world, understood the defensive line and how to compete at that level, was just a magician of a man who was able to communicate at an unprecedented level. He had what I call connectivity. It was communication plus, and was funny, could disarm you. I remember one time, AD, he called me up and he says, he used to call me Spence Dog. I say, Spence Dog, can you hear that noise in the background? I says, no. He says, these are parents back in the back fighting. So I just flipped their son. One of them was an alma mater at one school, and the other one was an alma mater at the other school, and the kid's going to Oklahoma now. And I said, John, what are you going to do? Are they fighting? And he said, yeah. So he puts the phone, and I don't know what he was doing on the other end, AD, but he was just kind of rustling the phone to make it seem like people were fighting, right? I said, Blake, you got to do something about that. He says, oh, man, last week I had a mongoose and a rattlesnake making love. He says, I'm the greatest coach. He said, I get them back there loving one another a little bit. And we got a saying about John Blake, he could convince a shark that the desert was the best place for him to be. That's how much influence he had as a recruiter. But he was, as much as he was a recruiter, he was a better human being. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And, thank you for giving me an opportunity to say a few words about John Blake. And I will say this as one parting thought about him. I will say to my grave, that 17 of the 22 starters that was on Oklahoma's last national championship team in 2000 were recruited by John Blake. I don't care what anybody says. That does nothing to diminish what Bob Stoops did. Bob did a wonderful job at Oklahoma, but you got to get the horses. Players play the game. But for the fact that those players are there, Oklahoma doesn't have a championship in 2000. In fact, Barry Switzer would have been the last coach to have led Oklahoma to a national championship, but for John Blake's
presence. I appreciate that, Spencer. No, but I would just stand here and concur the fact that when Bob Stoops walked in, the pantry was not empty. The pantry was loaded. All he had,
despite the fact that they weren't supporting the program at the time. Remember, Schnellenberger was gone. He failed. Gary Gibbs, unfortunately, good man, but failed. John came in only as a tertiary option, the last option, and they finally acquiesced after all sorts of racist mails and all kind of crazy. I could show you some of the letters that he sent me, and he coached in spite of all of that, man. It was absolutely amazing. Oldest coach he had on that staff was a guy named Dick Winder, was formerly of Texas Tech. Dick was probably maybe 72 years old, almost up in there close to that. He was barely making $85,000. I mean, you could juxtapose that today when you got coordinators making upwards of $2 million a year, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Please, are you kidding me? The amount of money. I mean, come on. That salary will be in the miscellaneous petty cash file in somebody's drawer right about now. But and I appreciate. Hey, man, like I said, I would have been remiss if we did not bring John Blake up, and just because like I said, but he set the table for Bob Stoops to really come in there and win a national championship. Yes, and no ifs, ands, and buts. And like I said, this is not a knock on Bob Stoops. I mean, it's just a fact of the matter that somebody prepared the table for you, and all you did was sit at the head of the table. Teamwork. You sat at the head of the table, and the meal got served, and your players served it up, and touche for you and everything else. But I think, like I said, that from afar, I admired him from afar. I didn't get a chance to know him like you did, but when guys get those that are first in those positions like that, they have to go through a mores of different things that they have to deal with. And I know deep down inside, there's got to have been some pain there. But the thing about he never let anybody know the pain that he had to deal with. And so, I just like I say,
not on the outside.
Hey, rest in peace.